Number 14 on this list was a live bird, dyed the color of a jelly bean, handed to a 9-year-old in a shoebox with air holes punched in the lid. Number 6 on this list disappeared from American Midways in 1970, not because kids stopped loving it, but because Congress decided it was a felony waiting to happen. And number 1 was so ordinary, so common, so completely unremarkable that almost nobody photographed it, which is exactly why, when it finally vanished, it took a piece of childhood with it that nobody can get back. 20 prizes, every one of them gone. If you had a grandfather who worked a Midway, or a mother who still keeps one chipped plaster figurine on a shelf she won't explain, you lived every single one of these. Subscribe now so you don't miss the next video, because we're just getting started on bringing back the America that got thrown out with the trash. Number 20. Punchboards, popularized in the 1910s. A tavern owner drilled holes in a wooden board, stuffed each one with a folded paper ticket, and charged a nickel a punch. What most people don't know is that by 1939, over 50 million punchboards were sold in a single year. That's not a carnival game. That's a national addiction disguised as a party favor. Cigarettes, cash, cheap jewelry, the prize didn't matter. The punching did. That cardboard square with 100 tiny holes. That satisfying pop of foil giving way under your thumbnail. Your grandfather kept one folded flat in his sock drawer for 40 years and never told you why. By the 1960s, states were writing laws specifically to kill them. Congress passed interstate gambling device restrictions in the 1950s that quietly strangled the supply chain first. It didn't die from boredom. It died because it was, legally, a crime wearing a party hat. The next prize wasn't gambling, it was a weapon, and they handed it to children. Number 19. Straight-edge razors. Standard top shelf prize at ring toss and milk bottle booths through the 1940s and into the 1950s. A man's razor, still in its leather strop case, sitting right next to the stuffed bears. What most people don't know is that carnival operators handed these out to teenage boys with zero age restriction, zero supervision. It was considered a rite of passage, not a liability. One good toss and a 14-year-old walked home carrying a blade sharp enough to open an artery. That leather case, stiff and new-smelling. That fold of steel catching the Midway lights. Your father shaved with his first one for a decade before he ever admitted where it came from. Insurance liability killed it by the mid-1950s. The epitaph is simple. The moment a lawyer priced out what one bad accident would cost, the razor booth closed for good. The next one wasn't dangerous. It was just illegal to give away for free. Number 18. Cigarette cartons. A fixture at nearly every game of skill on the Midway from the 1930s through the 1950s. Win the shooting gallery, walk away with a full carton of cigarettes. What most people don't know is that tobacco companies sponsored entire carnival routes just to get their brand into a customer's hands before he was old enough to buy it legally himself. It was marketing dressed as luck. That cellophane crinkle. That flat cardboard weight in your coat pocket. Your uncle won 3 cartons one summer and traded 2 of them for a used bicycle. Federal restrictions on tobacco giveaways to minors, tightened through the 1960s and 1970s, ended the practice for good. The real reason it died, the same industry that gave it away for free, eventually got sued into hiding it from children entirely. The next prize was smaller, but somehow it meant more to the kids who couldn't stop trading it. Number 17. Bee-stung marbles. Small handmade glass marbles, named for the tiny pockmarked bubble scars left on the surface from the glass-blowing process. Sold and awarded by the bag at pitch and toss booths. What most people don't know is that these weren't machine-made. Through the 1940s and 1950s, many were still hand-rolled by individual glassblowers working the fair circuit itself. One booth, one artisan, one summer at a time. A winning bag might contain 20 marbles, no 2 exactly alike. That cloth sack, heavier than it looked. That click of glass on glass in your pocket. Your grandmother traded her whole bag for one boy's prized cat's eye marble and never once regretted it. Cheap machine-perfect marbles from overseas flooded the market by the early 1960s and undercut every hand-blown booth on the circuit. The epitaph: perfection killed what imperfection made beautiful. The next item wasn't glass, it was wood, and it smelled like a memory before you even opened it. Number 16. Cedar boxes. small hand-jointed cigar and jewelry boxes stacked in pyramids behind the milk bottle toss, prized for the smell of the wood as much as the craftsmanship. What most people don't know is that many of these boxes were made by small regional wood shops that existed for no other purpose than supplying carnival prize routes. Entire tiny businesses, gone the moment the carnival economics changed. That smell of cedar the second you lifted the lid. That tiny brass hook and eyelatch. Your mother kept her hairpins in hers for 60 years and the smell never faded. Plastic tackle box style prizes replaced them by the mid-1960s because they cost a fraction to manufacture. The philosophical epitaph, plastic didn't win because it was better. It won because it was cheaper to lose. Next was something soft, something you'd find folded at the foot of a bed for a generation. Number 15. Chenille bedspreads. Big, tufted, pastel-colored spreads, often stitched with a poodle or a peacock, rolled up and displayed as top-tier grand prizes on the ring toss backboard. What most people don't know is that entire towns in Georgia and Alabama built their local economy around hand-tufting these bedspreads specifically for the carnival and roadside stand trade. Winning one wasn't just luck, it was buying a piece of a cottage industry. That raised, fuzzy texture under your palm. That specific chemical sweet smell of new fabric dye. Your grandmother put hers on the guest bed and dared anyone to actually sleep under it. Cheap imported bedspreads gutted the tufting mills by the 1960s. The epitaph, an entire regional craft economy died, so a department store could sell the same look for half the price. The next prize you didn't wear on your bed. You wore it around your neck, and it made you feel like a movie star for one night. Number 14. Ostrich feather boas. Bright dyed ostrich or marabou feather boas, draped over a rack at the ring toss booth. The single most photographed prize on the entire Midway. What most people don't know is that these were genuinely imported feathers, dyed by hand in small batches. A real luxury good handed out for the price of 3 ring tosses, a cost that would be unthinkable today. That soft brush of feathers against bare skin. That impossible saturated pink or turquoise color. Your mother wore hers to the dance that night and refused to take it off. Synthetic feather substitutes and rising import costs on real plumage ended the genuine article by the early 1960s. The epitaph. Real glamour got replaced by an approximation of it, and nobody noticed the difference until it was gone. Next up was a toy that taught an entire generation how to play cowboy and how to aim. Number 13. Cap guns. Die-cast metal toy pistols, loaded with paper rolls of gunpowder caps, awarded at shooting galleries where you used a real air rifle to win a fake one. What most people don't know is that these were often heavier and more detailed than the toys sold in stores, because carnival suppliers manufactured a premium, prize-only line specifically to outclass retail competitors. That smell of spent gunpowder caps, sharp and metallic. That satisfying kick of the hammer. Your father kept his in a drawer until the day he had a son of his own to give it to. Rising liability concerns and changing attitudes toward toy weapons pushed cap guns off Midways by the 1970s. The epitaph. The culture stopped being able to tell the difference between a toy and a warning sign. The next prize melted if you held it too long, and that was half the fun of winning it. Number 12. Taffy tins. Decorated metal tins packed with salt water or Turkish taffy, stacked in towers at the balloon dart booth, bright as candy stores in miniature. What most people don't know is that the tins themselves were designed to be reused as sewing kits or button boxes long after the candy was gone. The prize was built to outlive its contents by decades. That rattle of loose candy against tin. That sugar and metal smell when you pop the lid. Your grandmother's button tin, still on her sewing table, still says Atlantic City on the lid. Plastic packaging replaced tin by the mid-1960s because it was lighter to ship and cheaper to mold. The epitaph. We traded something that lasted 60 years for something built to be thrown away in one. Next was a prize nobody expected to still be ticking decades later, literally. Number 11. Cuckoo clocks. Genuine hand-carved wooden clocks, often imported from the Black Forest region of Germany, sat as the single grand prize atop the entire game booth. What most people don't know is that these were real mechanical clocks with working movements, not toys. A carnival could only afford to give away 1 or 2 per fair because the wholesale cost dwarfed every other prize on the Midway. That tick of the pendulum the second you got it home. that tiny painted bird popping out on the hour. Your grandfather hung his in the kitchen, and it outlived him by 20 years. Rising import costs and shrinking Carnival profit margins killed the practice by the 1960s. The epitaph, the prize that was actually worth something, is exactly the one they couldn't afford to keep giving away. The next item sat right next to it on the top shelf, and it was for the grown-ups only. Number 10. Liquor bottles. Full, sealed bottles of whiskey or gin, awarded at ring toss and milk bottle booths as the adult equivalent of the stuffed animal, no age checks required. What most people don't know is that this practice ran openly for decades at fairs across the country, with almost no regulation, until state liquor boards started treating carnival games as unlicensed points of alcohol sale. That glass clink in a paper sack, that wax seal you had to pick off with your thumbnail. Your father won 3 bottles one night and gave 2 away before he even got to the truck. State liquor licensing laws, tightened through the 1950s and 1960s, effectively ended the practice everywhere. The epitaph, the fair could sell you the thrill of chance, but the state finally decided it couldn't sell you the bottle to go with it. What came next, you wore on your head, and it told everyone exactly which movie you'd just seen. Number 9. Novelty hats. White sailor caps and, later, coonskin caps with a real raccoon tail, sold and awarded by the hundreds at nearly every Midway in the country. What most people don't know is that the coonskin cap craze exploded so fast after the Davy Crockett film hit theaters in 1955 that carnival suppliers reportedly couldn't source enough real raccoon tail to meet demand and started faking them with dyed rabbit fur instead. That tail swinging against your neck as you ran. That scratchy felt brim of the sailor cap in the summer heat. Your brother refused to take his off for an entire month, even to sleep. The craze burned out almost as fast as it started. By 1956, warehouses were stuffed with unsold caps nobody wanted anymore. The epitaph, it didn't die slowly. America just moved on to the next thing, the way it always does. The next prize wasn't a toy you played with once. It was one built to be wound up and set loose again and again. Number 8. Wind-up toys. Small tin robots, animals, and cars, powered by a simple wound spring, awarded at the ball toss and duck pond games for kids too young for the shooting gallery. What most people don't know is that most of these tin toys were stamped and printed in occupied Japan in the years right after World War II. A detail printed in tiny letters on the bottom that most winners never even noticed. That metallic scrape of the key turning. That jerky, mechanical little walk across the kitchen floor. Your mother wound hers up every single night before bed for a whole summer. Cheaper plastic battery toys replaced tin wind-ups by the early 1960s. The epitaph. The toy that made you work for the motion lost to the toy that did the work for you. The next prize wasn't a toy at all. It was alive, and it was dyed a color nature never intended. Number 7. Dyed chicks. Live baby chicks and ducklings, dip-dyed pink, blue, or green, sold in shoeboxes with punched air holes at Easter season carnivals and fairs. What most people don't know is that the vast majority of these animals died within days or weeks of being won. Most winning families had no idea how to care for a live bird, and the dye process itself was often harmful to the animal. That soft, frantic peeping in a cardboard box. That impossible cotton candy pink feather against your palm. Your little sister named hers before you even got to the parking lot. Rising animal welfare concern led most states to ban the sale and dyeing of live chicks as prizes by the 1970s. The epitaph. We called it a prize, but for the animal, it was almost always a death sentence dressed up in Easter colors. Next came a prize with longer ears and a much better chance of making it home alive, usually. Number 6. Live rabbits. Baby rabbits, sold in small wire cages, awarded as the grand prize at ring toss booths, particularly common at spring and Easter carnivals through the 1950s. What most people don't know is that carnival operators often bought these rabbits in bulk from local farms specifically for a single weekend fair, with no plan for what happened to the ones that went unwon. That warm, twitching weight in a cardboard carrier. That soft thump of a back foot against the cage floor. Your father built a hutch in the backyard the same weekend you won yours. Humane Society pressure and new state laws against giving away live animals as unsupervised prizes phased the practice out by the 1970s and 1980s. The epitaph. It took decades, but eventually, the law decided a living animal wasn't a legal thing to hand a stranger's child for free. The next prize wasn't alive, but it was fragile enough that it might as well have been. Number 5. Carnival glass. Iridescent pressed glass tumblers and punch bowl sets, their surface treated to shimmer like an oil slick, awarded as premium prizes at ring toss and dart booths. What most people don't know is that Carnival glass got its very name from this exact use. Cheap iridescent glassware, originally a failed attempt to imitate expensive art glass, got dumped onto the Carnival prize circuit when department stores wouldn't carry it. That rainbow shimmer catching the Midway lights just right. That heavier than expected weight in your two hands. Your grandmother's whole hutch cabinet was Carnival glass, and she could tell you exactly which piece came from which fair. Rising glass manufacturing costs and changing home decor tastes ended its run as a standard prize by the 1960s. The epitaph, the glass that was made because it wasn't good enough for stores, became, decades later, the very thing collectors fight over. The next prize wasn't something you drank from. It was something you dreamed of filling with a whole life's worth of belongings. Number 4. Cedar Hope chests. Full-size cedar chests, hand-jointed and lined, sat as the single largest grand prize at county fairs, the kind of prize that took a perfect game and a lot of luck to win. What most people don't know is that these chests were specifically marketed and stocked as wedding trousseau furniture, meaning a teenage girl winning one at a fair was, culturally, winning a piece of her own future marriage before she'd even met the man. That cedar smell filling an entire bedroom. That heavy creak of the hinge lid opening. Your grandmother stored her wedding dress in hers for 58 years. Furniture manufacturing shifted overseas, and the Hope chest tradition itself faded by the 1970s, taking the prize with it. The epitaph. The object didn't just go out of production. The entire cultural custom it represented quietly disappeared right along with it. The next two prizes are the ones almost everyone who grew up before 1970 remembers first, and we saved them for last on purpose. Number 3. Kewpie dolls. Small cherubic dolls with a signature top knot, based on characters created by illustrator Rose O'Neill, mass-produced for carnivals from the 1910s straight through the 1950s. What most people don't know is that many Carnival Kewpies weren't officially licensed at all. Bootleg versions with fictitious names flooded Midways for decades, meaning the doll your grandmother loved might not even be a real Kewpie under the law. That impossibly smooth, cool plastic in your hands. That painted, wide-eyed grin that somehow never looked quite right. Your grandmother kept hers on her dresser her entire life and dusted it every single week. Rising costs and changing toy tastes phased celluloid Kewpies off Midways by the early 1960s. The epitaph. The doll survived 2 world wars and a depression, but it couldn't survive a decade of children simply wanting something new. Which brings us to the prize that shared the exact same nickname, the one made of plaster, not plastic, and the one everyone who was there still calls by the same 3 words. Number 2. Chalkware figures. Molded plaster of Paris figurines, cartoon characters, animals, patriotic icons, mass-produced by novelty companies specifically for the carnival trade, wholesaling for about $1 a dozen. What most people don't know is that carnival barkers called almost every one of these figures a Kewpie doll, whether it looked anything like one or not. Step right up and win yourself a Kewpie doll became the single most repeated sentence on American Midways for 4 straight decades. That chalky, slightly rough texture under your fingertips. That airbrushed color already starting to flake before you got it home. Your mother's chalkware figurine sat on the mantel, one finger chipped, for as long as anyone in the family can remember. By the late 1950s and into the 1960s, oversized plush stuffed animals took over the top prize spot for good. The epitaph, the fragile thing that could shatter if you dropped it, lost to the soft thing that couldn't, and fragility, it turns out, was never going to win in the long run. But before we get to number 1, tell me something. Before we continue, we've gone through the cedar chests, the Kewpie dolls, the chalkware figures with the chipped fingers. Tell me in the comments, what's the one prize still sitting on a shelf in your parents' or grandparents' house right now? And do you know the story of how they won it? I read every single one. Number 1. Live goldfish. A single goldfish, scooped from a tank and knotted into a small plastic bag of water, awarded for landing a ping pong ball in the right bowl. What most people don't know is that the vast majority of these fish died within 24 hours of being won. The shock of temperature change, low oxygen, and rough handling was almost always fatal before the fish ever saw a real tank. Most families didn't even own one. That bag swinging heavy from your fist on the walk back to the car. That tiny orange flash darting against the plastic every time you squeezed it too hard. Your mother filled a mixing bowl with tap water the second you got home, already knowing it probably wouldn't be enough. City after city, and eventually entire states, banned the practice outright starting in the 1970s and continuing right up through today. The epitaph is the simplest one on this whole list. It wasn't a prize. It was a life, handed to a child in a plastic bag, and calling it a game never made that part okay. These prizes didn't stop working. They weren't retired or replaced or quietly discontinued because nobody wanted them anymore. They were decided against by lawyers, by lawmakers, by a culture that slowly stopped being able to justify handing a razor, a bottle, or a living animal to a child for the price of 3 ring tosses. Which one of these was sitting in your childhood home? Not the object itself, the moment around it. Who was standing next to you when you won it? And what does remembering that bring back? Tell me in the comments. Subscribe, because there is a lot more of this country left to remember.